Young man, you are no wiser than Samson, just way less important. Good afternoon to you all. I hope that you're feeling blessed and highly favored on today. You're in for a good one. If you're familiar with this channel, if you're familiar with me, once I crack that Bible open, I tend to, hey, you in for a good one. For sure. I tend to put y'all little pastors to shame, man. All these little ABC bubblegum messages that you're accustomed to hearing. I'm gonna probably give you an interesting perspective on that you've never heard before. As I was reading this and as the Lord was giving it to me, it just had me excited. So this is one that I couldn't wait to give to the people on today. And of course, we're not going to be utilizing any language. So if you are worried about that, if you watch some of my other videos where I'm discussing other topics, things to that effect, don't worry about that. You can actually run this on a Sunday if you like to, and if you watch to the end and you actually are attentive to what's being displayed to you, I can promise you that you're going to be blessed on today. Now, when you think of Samson, oftentimes this is one that's going to be in children's books, coming up when you're Bible study and things to this effect. You're going to hear about Samson, and traditionally, when you think of Samson, you just think of somebody that's stupid, for lack of a better word. Like, how on earth did he allow himself, after lying to this woman 3 times, and each time he sees someone's coming to get him, how did he end up actually telling her the truth and being hauled off into captivity? Well, I'm going to expose that on today, and I'm going to give you some information to let you know that Samson was probably a little bit more smarter than you. He just was a bit more arrogant. Now, we're going to start off here. If you do have your Bibles, or you can feel free to follow along. I'm going to post them on the screen here. But the story takes place, or it starts off in Judges chapter 13. And if you're familiar with the Old Testament, then a recurring theme is that the children of Israel, oftentimes they sinned against God, and each time that they did or did evil in the sight of the Lord, they would find themselves in captivity, and the Lord would have to raise up someone to actually deliver them up out of this particular captivity. However, we start off here in chapter 13, and it says, and the children of the Lord did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. Now, we drop down here to verse 5. Verse 3. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto the woman, and said unto her, Behold, now thou art barren, and bearest not, but thou shalt conceive and bear a son. Now therefore beware, I pray thee, and drink not wine nor strong drink, and eat not any unclean thing. For lo, thou shalt conceive and bear a son, and no razor shall come on his head. For the child shall be a Nazarite unto God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. Then the woman came and told her husband, saying, A man of God came unto me, and his countenance was like the countenance of an angel of God, very terrible. But I asked him not whence he was, neither told he me his name. And again, she goes on to relay the message to her husband as to the ways that she should carry this child and how he should be raised. Of course, and that's the first thing I want you to notice, that he was set apart. The Lord had a calling on Samson's life from the very beginning. So he was almost raised in knowing his value. He was raised knowing that he had a purpose. He was raised knowing that he was called by the Lord himself to deliver his people out of the hands of the Philistines. This is so very powerful. Now, let's continue to follow along with this. And before I actually exit off of that, I want you to think of any young man that you may know that, and I'm going to say it in a different vernacular, but a young man that his father may have been a gangster in the streets, a well-known gangster, a money-making person in the streets. He almost comes up, even if his father isn't there to lead and guide him, the neighborhood around him lets him know that your father was a factor, that you were important, that you were relevant. And so he almost grows up walking, already, being bred to walk or fill in the shoes that his father left behind. So there's just something about when you have a purpose or when you have a calling on your life, or when you are bred to believe that you at least have a calling on your life. And that's in a negative light oftentimes, but I just want you to understand the importance of being raised with a purpose. Now, as Samson began to grow older, he never met a challenge that he couldn't beat with his own physical strength. He never met a challenge that he was unable to get around. So one thing about it, anytime, and again, going back to the streets, anytime that you go undefeated for too long, anytime that you're so smart and you're so clever to where nobody can take anything from you, all of your plans are coming into fruition, you've evaded law enforcement, nobody can beat you up, nobody can take anything from you, folks really out here scared of you. This breeds a certain level of arrogance that you can't comprehend unless you've been in those shoes, or unless you know somebody who is this type of person. I think it's only natural in anything in life, whether you can take a football or a basketball player, if his gifts have made a way for him all throughout high school and middle school and college, if he's been the man everywhere he goes, he's dropping 40 points, he's throwing all these touchdowns, he's running for 1,000-yard seasons and touchdowns, this, that, and the third, can put the team on his back. There's going to be a level of arrogance about him to where this is not going to be corrected. So if he just passes on, this could be a positive thing, because if he ends up going to the league, it's only right. So, oftentimes this is a make or break point where, when you get to the league and you're around other individuals who are just as good as you, oftentimes if you've never faced adversity before, if you don't come from that solid foundation, you tend to crumble in these type of scenarios and situations, and it really tests what you're made of. But not getting too far off topic, I just wanted to kind of give you some insight into the ways of a young man who's been called, or who has been raised and bred in knowing his value and knowing who he is. So that's first off. Now, second, the next thing I want to point out is that Samson began to confuse God's mercy and gifts with his own abilities. Now, oftentimes when we read the scriptures, individuals have a tendency to think of these like happening in consecutive days. They don't look at it like the course of they would their own life. And so over the course of these years, like I said, he's been going undefeated. The scriptures don't point to any type of controversy or any type of thing that he's been that has defeated him. And so as he continues to grow, you can see the spirit of arrogance all on him. And the first time that you see this, let's drop down to the scriptures here. Chapter 14. And Samson went down to Timnath and saw a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. And again, these are the people that they're in captivity to. And the Lord always warned the young men against marrying outside of their race, because time and time again, the same list he gave, further on down the line to Solomon, these women are going to turn your heart away from me. So he always advised against that. But again, when you're arrogant, you can't acknowledge anything but what you desire. And so, and he came up and told his father and his mother and said, I have seen a woman in Timnath of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore get her for me to wife. Then his father and his mother said unto him, Is there never a woman among the daughters of thy brethren, or among all my people, that thou goest to take a wife of the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said unto his father, Get her for me, for she pleaseth me well. Pay attention to that. But his father and mother knew not that it was of the Lord that he sought an occasion against the Philistines, for at the time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. So in him doing this is really the Lord's will. That the Lord was setting this up the whole time. He's behind all of this. Now, verse 5, Then went Samson down and his father and his mother to Timnath and came to the vineyards of Timnath, and behold, a young lion roared against him. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he rent him as he would have rent a kid. And he had nothing in his hand, but he told not his father or mother what he had done. Now, again, Verse 7, he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. And after a time he returned to take her. And he returned aside to see the carcass of the lion. And behold, there was a swarm of bees and honey in the carcass of the lion. And he took thereof in his hands and went on eating, and came to his father and mother, and he gave them, and they did eat. But he told not them that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of the lion. Did you catch that? Now, to the untrained eye, to somebody who's not really familiar with scripture, I mean, you probably, if you can use context clues, you know that you understand that he knows that he's done something wrong, but you may not know why, because going back to his original Nazarite covenant that he made with the Lord, there were several things that were enlisted or entrusted in this particular covenant. The one that everyone knows is that he wasn't supposed to cut his hair. The second part of that was he was not to drink any wine or any strong drink. And then thirdly, he was not to eat any unclean thing. And so with that, he's basically defiled himself, and he's defiled his covenant that has been made with the Lord. And with this being said, typically he's supposed to start the covenant all over again. Once the covenant has been broken, you're supposed to restart it and, do it all over again. However, there's no consequence for this. There's no consequence. So this is the first time, I believe, in Samson's mind, he began to confuse the gifts and the mercies of God with his own abilities. Because even if it was subconscious, okay, he's been bred, he understands that there are three parts to this covenant that he is to never break, and he's broken one of them. This is the first time that he's broken that. And not only did he partake of the honey, but then he goes back and tries to justify this, gives it to his mother and father, and I know they tearing the honey up like, this is good, Samson. They don't even ask him where he got it from, and nor does he tell them. He keeps it a secret. And so, to me, this is him being set up, because subconsciously, again, what have we learned? Typically, if there is no correction there, we know that we understand that the Lord chastises those who he loves. And so without any chastising, without any correction, typically this is going to breed that bad behavior. And so in this particular case, much like in any Christian's life, when you continue to do wrong for so long, that first time or that second or even that third time, if there's no consequence there, you get comfortable, and you start believing that, there's not going to be any consequence for this. And this is very dangerous. Now, let's continue to go on here. All right, so in verse 10, so his father went down unto the woman, and Samson made there a feast, for so used the young man to do. And it came to pass, when they saw him, that they brought 30 companions to be with him. And Samson said unto them, I will now put forth a riddle unto you. If you certainly declare it me within the 7 days of the feast, and find it out, then I will give you 30 sheets and 30 change of garments. But if you cannot declare it to me, then ye give me 30 sheets and 30 change of garments. And they said unto him, Put forth thy riddle, that we may hear it. And he said unto them, Out the eater come forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. And they cannot in 3 days expound the riddle. Pay attention and follow me, I'm going somewhere. And it came to pass on the 7th day that they said unto Samson's wife, Entice thy husband, that he may declare unto us the riddle, lest we burn thee and thy father's house with fire. Have ye called us to take that we have? Is it not so? And Samson's wife, after hearing this threat from these men, instead of understanding who she has as a man and letting him know what's going on, she comes and again, Philistine women, instead of her understanding the value of this man, all she got to do is tell him he going to get straightened it out. But again, let's see where this goes. And Samson's wife wept before him and said, Thou dost but hate me, and lovest me not. Thou hast put forth a riddle unto the children of my people, and hast not told it to me. And he said unto her, Behold, I have not told it my father nor my mother. Shall I tell it to thee? And she wept before him the 7 days while the feast lasted. And it came to pass on the 7th day, the last day, that he told her, because she lay sore upon him. So again, she warmed down with the crying and the whining. And she told the riddle to the children of her people. And the men of the city said unto him on the 7th day, before the sun went down, what is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? And he said unto them, if ye had not plowed with my heifer, ye had not found out my riddle. And the spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon, and slew 30 men of them, and took their spoil, and gave change of garments unto them which expounded the riddle. And his anger was kindled, and he went up to his father's house. But Samson's wife was given to his companion, whom he had used as his friend. And so now, going on in chapter 15, after Samson, he hot, so he ends up, he start doing things, like he went and stole from these people. They come back and they kill the girl and her father. Anyway, they burnt them alive. And, now Samson extra hot. So he goes on to do a series of events. He basically set fire to all their grains and everything. He just tearing them up. He just they mad at Samson. Like, he just go and do some things to him to just apply pressure to him. We'll put it like that to kind of summarize what's going on. And again, it's nothing but 3 chapters, so you can go back and read this in your own time. I just want to kind of give you a brief synopsis as to what's going on here. But I want you to take notice of how he was tempted that first time. The woman came to him and she cried and cried until he gave her the riddle. So warning comes before destruction again. So the second time we know what happens to him as far as with Delilah, which we're going to get into very shortly. But then it all goes back to how he was initially tried the first time. So I want you to take this into perspective in your own life. Typically, the enemy is going to consistently try you with your shortcomings, whatever that may be. If he tried you this time, chances are he's going to come back around and you're going to face that same test again. If your weakness is women, if your weakness is money, whatever the case may be, you're typically going to get tried like that again. If you're of value, if you're really a factor. And again, going back to my original statement, you're just not as important as Samson. So oftentimes your flaws aren't going to be exposed. Oftentimes in the streets, you're not going to, folks ain't plotting and scheming on you. If you're not really getting no money, if you're not really making folks bleed on the other side or nothing like that, then you can kind of go on doing whatever you want to do, But if you're really a factor, if you really on that target list, then they're going to plot, they're going to scheme on you the same way that the Philistines were schemed and plotted against Samson. At this point, by chapter 16, they got to get him out of here because they've been trying all in chapter 15. They can't do it. He tearing them up. He killing them with jawbones and things like this. He just tearing them up. Really interesting story. You should definitely go back and check it out in your own free time. Chapter 15 ends off in verse 20. It says that he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. And so it's my belief that now the time has passed. So from the last time where things have transpired with the first wife, and the riddle and everything to this effect, and also with him defiling his temple, eating from the unclean carcass of the lion, time has passed since then. And so this isn't just a 2, 3, 4 days later. This is actually an entire segment later, an entire time period later, to where he's had some time to kind of, wear down and kind of he's feeling comfortable again, so to speak. And now in verse 16, then went Samson down to Gaza and saw there a harlot, and he went in unto her. Yeah, I know if you are familiar with the scriptures, and you know what that means. Anytime he went into her or he knew her, yeah, you know what that means. Yeah, But and it was told to the Gazites, saying, Samson is come hither, and they compassed him in and laid wait for him all night in the gate of the city. Again, Samson is a big op. He important at this point. Like, he tearing them up. So like, they primary objective is to get this man up out of here. Like, they know he done been called for the Lord. They know about his strength. They know about his exploits. They understand all of this. So they looking to get Samson up out of here. So they're plotting and scheming on how they can do that. The same way somebody might be plotting on you in real life, trying to get you up out of here, young man. You feel me? But they were quiet in the night, saying, in the morning, when it is day, we shall kill him. And Samson lay till midnight, and arose at midnight, and took the doors of the gate of the city and 2 posts, and went away with them, bar and all, and put them upon his shoulders, and carried them up to the top of the hill that is before Hebron. And it came to pass afterwards that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. enter in Delilah at this point. And the lords of the Philistines, the same way the young man came to, they used the last young lady that he was with in order to get the riddle up out of him. They finna do her the same way. So again, you see the enemy coming at him the exact same way. Right? And the lords of the Philistines came unto her and said, entice him and see wherein his great strength lieth, and by what means we may prevail against him, that we may bind him to afflict him, and we will give thee every one of us 1,100 pieces of silver. So that, baby, we're gonna make you rich. It's so important that we get that we get bro up out of here, that we willing to make you rich. All you gotta do is tell us what's going on. And Delilah said unto Samson, tell me, I pray thee, wherein thy great strength lieth, and wherewith thou mightest be bound to afflict thee. Off the rip, this question is stupid. Like, what do you mean, woman? Like, why would I tell you my strength? Let's continue to see what Samson does here. And so, and Samson said unto her, if they bind me with 7 green withs that were never dried, then shall I be weak and be as another man. Then the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 green withs which had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Now there were men lying in wait, abiding with her in the chamber. And she said unto him, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he brake the withs as a thread of tow is broken when it touched the fire, so his strength was not known. So he go out there, boom, he break it, and he go out there like ain't nothing happened. And Delilah said unto Samson, behold, thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Now tell me, I pray thee, wherewith thou mightest be bound. Now obviously this man is playing a dangerous game with this woman. My response, or typically the response of any man, should have been, if he was truly operating under the spirit of this game, he would have instantly won me. What do you mean? Off the top, why are you even asking me this question? The answer is always in the why. And he would have, what are you getting at? Why are you asking me this? And the gang would immediately start ministering to him and letting him know that something ain't right with this. You need to be going in a different direction. Get this woman out your midst. She ain't right. But he loved this woman, as the scripture said. And again, it's not stupidity, but yes, it is. But arrogance, the reason of the stupidity is that of arrogance. It's not the fact that he just was unwise and like, oh my God, because if he was that dumb, he would have told her on the first try when she first came to him. So this lets me know that he probably thought back to that first time when his first wife came to him and he just told her. He didn't lie to her 3 times. He just told her the first time what was going on as far as with this riddle. Now, going back to it, is my belief, in the same way like many of y'all are in the streets or playing games with these women at that, you might notice she messed with a known enemy of yours on a different side of town, or this, that, and the third. But you're willing to play these little games. You're willing to run this risk. You're willing to let this woman come in who you don't really know like that in your quiet chambers and let her see money. You let her come in. She can see where everything is at. Like she's not gonna go back and report this, but this is a sign of arrogance, because you think in your mind, again, these folks know better than to play with me. They know my work. Now, it don't even matter if you tell this other man. It ain't even cross they mind that folks could, that something could happen to you. It's not even crossing your mind. Much like it is with Samson. Now, the second part of this that I want to expound on is that the reason why I felt that he is comfortable in playing this game with this woman, this very dangerous game, is because, again, he has been bred in his mind, I think subconsciously, he believes that the Lord is going to be with him regardless. Why does he think that? Because going back to the carcass or the honey that was in the carcass of the lion, he's already defiled or broken the covenant that he's made with the Lord one time, and there was no consequence for that. So in his mind, he's only justified in thinking that, wow, if the Lord was still with me, even after I broke the covenant this first time, what is my hair? So even if I was to lose my hair, this strength is still within me. The Lord is still within me. So it really, I think at this point, he doesn't even care if it's the hair. I think that's just a formality. So even if he has to know that this is coming, because each time he reveals this to the woman, it happens almost immediately. We saw it on the first time. So then the second time he says, after she come back again, think back to his first wife, when she came in crying, So obviously he has a soft spot in his heart for women crying and laying on him and whining and nagging. And so he said unto her, if they bind me fast with new ropes that have never been that never were occupied, then shall I be weak and be as another man. So in verse 12, Delilah therefore took new ropes and bound him therewith, and said unto him, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And there were liars in wait abiding in the chamber, and he brake them from off his arms like a thread. And Delilah, in verse 13, and Delilah said unto Samson, hitherto thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Tell me wherewith thou mightest be bound. And he said unto her, if thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web. And she fastened it with the pin, and said unto him, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awakened out of his sleep, and went away with the pin of the beam and with the web. And she said unto him, how canst thou say, I love thee, when thine heart is not with me? Thou hast mocked me these 3 times, and hast not told me wherein thy great strength lieth. Now this is really crazy to me, because each time you seeing that she's trying to set you up. This is the epitome of arrogance to me, because this is beyond stupidity at this particular point. He sees this, and again, for some way in his mind, I think he's actually turned on by this little game that he's playing with this woman, because at this point she smited you 3 times. Like you see that she's trying to set you up, but to me it's all a game in his mind that's going on with this woman. And he's so arrogant and so confident that, in his strength and that, the abilities that the Lord has gifted him with, that he doesn't even care at this point, because, he likes this woman. And much like, it's a bit of, it's something about the element of danger, that element that, things could go left there. Oftentimes, men and women like doing things that they're not supposed to be doing. So I'm thinking, in his mind, this relationship is just on fire. And he allows this woman to, because instantly, this should have been checked. Like, dang, off the rip, he should have, woman, you didn't hear what I said the first time. But again, she comes back 3 times, and he tells her, playing this dangerous game with her. And so, and she's rationalizing this and justifying it and running a game on this man and telling him, Samson, there's no way that you love me. And I'm trying to set you up these 3 times, and you won't allow me to set you up. How can you say that you love me? Young man, don't that sound like somebody that you know? Might sound like you. You dig? But verse 16, it says, now watch this. It says, now it came to pass when she pressed him daily with her words and urged him, so that his soul was vexed unto death. Again, as a man, I want to take a brief side note here. Going back to one of my earlier messages. Check that. Any unchecked temptation, if it goes on too long, you're going to fold to it. So you have to check that off the rip, and you have that power in you as a man. Your word is your word. What you say is to go. So this immediately, it should have vexed his spirit the first or second time that she brought this back up to him. Woman, you hear what I told you. You ain't hear what I said. Why do you keep asking me this? Again, he's not even questioning. He's not even inquiring why you want to know this so bad. He just letting her nag and go on and wear him and beat him down with this constant nagging and crying. Let's see the result of this. Now, 17, that he told her all his heart, and he said unto her, there have not come a razor upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite unto God from my mother's womb. If I be shaven, then my strength will go from me, and I will become weak and be like any other man. And when Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, she sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, come up this once. You got it. Hey, this is a cold woman, man. You feel me? Like she really operating in the spirit of, I don't want to say, but this really goes on today. A lot of times, these women that y'all are paying for, these women that you breaking bread with, and deceiving yourself into thinking that she actually like you and love you, son, you're just a sponsor. That's what I come here to tell you on today. And 9 times out of 10, she's probably under the instructions of one. It's one out there that she really looks up to. It's a man that she really respects. And 9 times out of 10, she's under his instruction. And that issue that she finna break you for, all these goods and everything that you finna come up, you know better than Sam Rothstein off what's my movie? Casino. Y'all, you the same. I mean, you can try to beat the little dude up. She taking all Sam money, and Sam really love the woman, but she taking all his money, giving it back to the one that she really love. That's what you men remind me of. But moving on. And when Delilah saw that he had told her his heart, she sent up and called for the lords of the Philistines, saying, "Come up this once, for ye have shown me all this heart." Then the lords of the Philistines came up to her and brought money in their hand, and she made them sleep upon her knees. Boy, she good. And she called for a man, and she caused him to shave off the 7 locks of his head, and she began to afflict him, and his strength went from him. Now, again, just another brief side note, I want you to understand the power of the femininity of the woman. Even after he done revealed, he was so comfortable and so arrogant that even after he done revealed his heart to this woman, she was able to put him at peace and cause him to fall asleep on her knees. My goodness. And she said, not even knowing it, it's you finna have an expiration date very, very soon. And she said, the Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he woke up out of his sleep and said, I will go out as the other times before and shake myself, and wist not that the Lord was departed from him. And then the Living Bible, it says that he knew not that the Lord, that the Spirit of the Lord was with him. So again, waking up out of his sleep, this is how I know, going back to what I told you initially, this whole thing has been set up for him to believe in himself. And this is where the arrogance comes in at. The arrogance comes into play because he believes, even though his hair is gone, like he wakes up and that this hair be heavy. Like, I don't know if you had dreads or anything like that, but this hair be heavy. So if you just woke up and your hair was cut, man, you gonna notice that immediately. But in his mind, it don't even matter. I'm still gonna go out here and shake loose like I had done all these previous times before. Going back to him eating out of the carcass of the lion, there was no repercussion for that. There was no consequence. So in his mind, in his arrogant mind, even with him having his hair cut, he still believes that there's going to be no consequence for this also. Now let's continue to go on and see what takes place. Verse 21, but the Philistines took him and put out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with fetters of brass, and he did grind in the prison house. Howbeit the hair of his head began to grow again after he was shaven. Then the lords of the Philistines gathered them together to offer a great sacrifice unto Dagon their God, and to rejoice. For they said, Our God hath delivered Samson our enemy into our hand. So they false God. They and I love the Lord's ability to utilize even fools. He has a mean way of utilizing foolish men in order to get his will accomplished. And so while they're giving thanks to Dagon for their brains, for their minds, because wow, this one who's been afflicting us for so long, he's finally been delivered into our hands. So they're just throwing a feast, they're rejoicing, and the whole time this is all a part of the Lord's plan, the Lord's scheme, and we'll see what happens momentarily here. So then in verse 24, when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, Our God hath delivered into our hands our enemy and the destroyer of our country, which slew many of us. And it came to pass when the hearts were merry, and they said, Call for Samson, that he may make us sport. So they're using Samson for entertainment. You dig? And he said, and then they called for Samson out of the prison house, and he made them sport, and they set him between the pillars. Wow, how the mighty have fallen. I know that's what they saying in their head. And Samson said unto the lad that held him by the hand, Suffer me that I may feel the pillars whereupon the house standeth, that I may lean upon them. Now the house was full of men and women, and the lords of the Philistines were there, and there were upon the roof about 3,000 men and women. And behold, while Samson made sport, and Samson called unto the Lord and said, O Lord God, remember me, I pray thee, and strengthen me, I pray thee, only this once, O God, that I may be at once avenged of the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And Samson took hold of the 2 middle pillars upon which the house stood, and on which it was borne up, and of the one with his right hand and the other with his left. And Samson said, Let me die with the Philistines. And he bowed himself with all his might, and the house fell upon the lords and upon all the people that were there within. So the dead which he slew at his death were more than they which he slew in his life. Then his brethren and all the house of his father came down and took him and brought him up and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the burying place of Manoah his father. And he judged Israel 20 years. Now, with this, in conclusion, just wrapping everything up there, again, going back to the original topic or the original title of this message, you're no wiser than Samson. just less important. And I say all that to say, or I make that statement to say that oftentimes your flaws aren't being exposed because you're not a factor. As I said earlier on, if you really were called by the Lord, the higher, like I think back to the old Peter Parker adage, what his Uncle Ben told him. With great power comes great responsibility. And so anytime that you're a factor, anytime that you have importance, that you have a calling on your life, that you've been called to do something, you're going to be number one on the enemy board, much like if the police want to take you down, they going for the head. They believe in cutting the head off the snake and the body going to drop, But oftentimes, if you're not relevant, if you're not important, then you can just go on sinning. You can go on doing whatever you want to do, and it really doesn't matter. The Satan, he's probably not even gonna put a demon on assignment to you if you're not important, if he understands that if you don't see any type of gifting that the Lord done blessed you with, that you can deliver to people, that you can come and really, like the scriptures say, the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. If he doesn't see you as ever becoming a factor, anyone that's going to be a factor for the Lord, and really be saving souls for the Lord, he might continue to let you go on doing your thing. You might be able to sin, fornicate your whole life, be on drugs, really don't even care nothing about you, and even up until your death or to your expiration date, so to speak. But if you are to the young man out here who is relevant, who is important, who actually has a calling on his life, who has a purpose, the Bible describes your enemy as a roaring lion, roaming back and forth, seeking whom he may devour. So please understand on today that your enemy is not playing with you. The more relevant that you are, if you're truly a factor, if you're important, your enemy is not playing with you at all. And that goes across the board, even from a spiritual standpoint. We understand that our war isn't physical, but of course, with principalities and powers that abide in high places. And so whether you're looking at it from a spiritual aspect, whether you're looking at it from a street aspect, again, if you're just out here, if you're really a factor in your section, there's always little dudes that's going to be trying to get you out the way. If you just even have a beautiful woman, so to speak, it's going to be little dudes that's plotting on you, trying to get you up out of the way, trying to constantly look at your weakness, trying to backbite you, trying to see whatever they can do to tear down what you have established, so my message to you on today is dare not look at Samson and consider him to be stupid, but examine your own life. Examine that own spirit of arrogance. Go ahead and do your own inventory and check it, because one thing that the Lord hates is a prideful look. And so if you do sense that spirit of arrogance, if you know that you have a tendency to be honorary or airy in your way of thinking, then I would advise you to go ahead and check that, because oftentimes this is going to lead to you moving in ways that typically you shouldn't be moving, into where you could get caught slipping, and you're too important for that. And so, I just want to go ahead and leave that with you here on today. Hopefully, this was good. As good to you as it was to me, and that you've really gotten something from it. Of course, definitely feel free to subscribe to the channel. I implore you rather to subscribe. Definitely comments, like the content, get it out there, share it, and let me know what you think above all else, and let me know if this has in fact been a blessing to you. And until next time, be blessed.